This is my favorite part of resin art. When you dip the cloudiness in and reveal. Right, we are back with another insane resin art video. So this one was inspired by an artist on a different platform called fromsmallworld. They create these really stunning pendants with clouds in. Now, I've tried to make clouds before for resin. I've used soap, I've used air dry clay, and I always struggle. I get lots of bubbles, but this artist showed some pieces and they were bubble free, and it looked like they'd used a pigment paste or titanium dioxide to make the fluffy clouds. Because when they were applying the clouds, some of them were dry and then some of them were wet, and it got me thinking. So I don't know whether this is how they are doing it, but I've just had a try and I've learnt some mistakes, and I think I can better it for this video, but I'll show you that one at the end. So to make the clouds, just going to want an old silicone mat. Anything that you can flip over and also cure the clouds from the other side. Got a small mixing cup, and I'm using the Resin Rockers Clear Hard UV resin. Not much. You really don't need much. Just a few drops. See that? Not much at all. Now for titanium dioxide. It's just a powder form, and then we are going to, where's my stick? I'm always losing something. I'm just going to take some of that powder and add it to the resin. Now, you're going to need quite a bit from what I've discovered. Now I'm going to use my toothpick to mix that in thoroughly. And I want a consistency that's almost like a clay, but you can just see how quickly that has turned into mush. It's not really what we want. So I'm just going to keep adding titanium dioxide until it's at the right consistency for me to make my clouds. It's starting to get there now. A bit more, I think. And all we do with this, once it's fully mixed, is apply it to our silicone mat and then cure it. I think a little bit more. Sorry. Now you could batch make these clouds and just store them away. And because they're not going to be huge, they will cure through, so don't panic. Some of you may be thinking, oh, but that's UV resin, it's going to be too opaque. I mean, they might not even be doing it this way. I saw it and I thought, it must be. I can't think of anything else that is as brilliant white as the clouds that I saw in those short videos. So there we have a consistency that we can make small clouds with. So just a bit at a time, we're going to place it onto our silicone mat and just manipulate it into a cloud-like formation any way you like. You see it's got that fluffy texture like a clay does. So you can just make, sorry, my focus went, make lots of clouds. This one's upside down. That's better. You just make lots of different size clouds, but again, don't make them too thick. But if they're not fully cured through, they are going to be in quite a bit of resin, so it's not gonna matter so much. You'd really have to smash open all of the resin to get to it. It's not going to be a liquid form. It's not going to be of any concern if it is a little bit tacky in the middle, but we want them crispy enough that we can pick them up. So there are my little clouds. I've still got like scrapings in my pot. We're going to need this, so set that aside. Don't let any UV light get to that because we're going to need that for another stage. And I'm going to cure that on both sides for a minute. So those are now cured, and you'll see I can tap them and they're crispy, and I can also peel them off, which is what we want. So there we have some little clouds that aren't going to give us lots of bubbles. On to the next step. So for the next step, we are going to be using one of these oval cabochon cavities in our big mold, and we're going to create a shell. Now the reason why we're going to create a shell is because I just tried it by adding the colors first. Now what happens when you add liquid dyes to UV resin and cure it, it shrinks a lot more than what it would normally. So I'm going to this time try and create a shell, because we're going to be merging bits together. You can do it a different way, I'll tell you about that when it comes to it. But we're just going to pour some UV resin, some clear UV resin in here, and then we are just going to move our mold around and get it all the way up to the edges, the whole way round, and then cure it. So we've got that shell to work with. So there we have a cured shell, not that you can really see it, but we're just going to set that aside now and mix up our three colours. So the three colours I'm using is the blues, jazz and folk. Now these are liquid dyes, and these are from the Resin Rockers genre series. Again, all links and discount codes in the description box below. So just again, a small amount of each. For the blue and the orange, we are going to be using more of, but for the red, only a small amount. And we're going to go with 2 drops of blue, 2 drops of orange, and just 1 drop of the red. And just thoroughly mix those in. You don't want any streaks. So back to our shell, we take our blue and we just drizzle that into the mold, and we're going to do the same thing that we did when we made the shell. We're just going to move the mold around, take it all the way up to the top, and just cover the top half. We don't want it going down the bottom half, just the top, and again cure that. Then with our orange, I'm going to lift the back of the mold up and pour that into the bottom half. It's not really half, it's probably a third now. I've got the blue down a little bit further, but it doesn't matter. And repeat, just tilt it around and cure it. If you have a pocket UV light, that might be easier for you. It's entirely up to you. Then for the red, I'm tilting the mold again, and it is just going to go right at the bottom, just to darken that to look like a sunset. So it looks a bit messy at the moment, but it doesn't matter. We're going to be putting our clouds in now. So the way I did mine is I just started off, I cured a small amount of UV resin in the back to create a solid, base for us to start placing our clouds on. Just manipulate it out, pop any bubbles, you don't want any bubbles showing through, and cure it. So this is the bit where it's going to get quite long-winded for this video, so I am going to skip a lot of it, but essentially all I'm going to do is just keep repeating the process until my resin is flush. So now that solid layer's there, I'm going to add a very thin amount over the top, spread that out, pop any bubbles, and then I can start adding my clouds. Now I'm going to use the bigger clouds at the back because it is going to be magnified, and it also gives you that 3D depth a lot better. See, bigger clouds at the back and work your way up to smaller clouds, but don't go too crazy like I did in my first attempt, which you'll see at the end, because it can look too busy. So I'm just going to start adding them, moving them around to where I want. You're going to get some bubbles come out from the back when you place it in, but you can place it in front down and then flip it over if you want. It's entirely up to you. So just start placing your clouds in the resin. So now we can go back to that small amount that we have left in this cup, and what we're going to do is just begin to tap around the clouds using that to build up like loose cloud formations, wispy effects. Let me lock my focus. Been doing this long enough, I should know by now. See, it's adding that kind of wispy, windy look around the clouds. Don't go too much with this because again, it can look too busy. You can kind of just add it in around the clouds to make them look more natural. As always, massive shout out to my channel members, anyone who's bought me a coffee or a super thanks, and to all my subscribers. It is free, just hit that button. So I'm going to continue doing that. And then give that a cure under my light. Don't worry about curing underneath yet. We can do that afterwards. So like I said, all we'd need to do now is just repeat this. But just remember, after you've cured in a layer of clouds, cure in a clear layer before you add more clouds. That will give you more depth, and it will also prevent the clouds from sinking. Okay, so I'm on the final layer of clouds, and again, these are just going to be the smaller ones, just that are going to be at the forefront, if that's the word. And just remember, as you're building this up, you don't want to be above the edge of the mold with any clouds, because that could be an issue when we get to the last stage. So now I'm just making sure there's no bits of fluff that's fallen in to the other side, because we're going to need that now. So I'm just going to fill up. This will be the lens, and then I'm going to give this a final flat cure so that it's completely flat and flush with the mold, hopefully. I'm a little bit worried about this cloud here because it's sticking up a tiny bit. Fingers crossed this doesn't go wrong, guys. So just a thin coat just to seal everything and bring that flat. So I've just slid a piece of black card underneath my mold. That really helps seeing any bubbles that could be in this part here. Just bring them to the surface and get rid of them. And then we just cure them. Right, okay, so I've taken the clear one out. I should have put my mirror underneath, but it doesn't matter because I'm going to sand this. It's just it's got a bit dodgy. But you'll see my idea of adding the shelf first didn't really work because it has shrunk. So what the plan is to marry these together. But because that has shrunk a considerable amount compared to the clear one, it's going to create more work sanding down the clear one. So what I think I'm going to try is popping my mirror underneath, popping some clear UV resin inside there, and then pushing. Hopefully it will rise to the sides, meeting the outside. bringing it flush again. It doesn't matter if it's not perfect because I can sand it down, but I just want less work. So I'm hoping I can marry them together without more sanding. Yep, that's not working. As I pushed it down, it's come over the front, creating a lip, which is gonna make my work even harder. So I'm gonna have to take that out and clean it up. So we go back to plan A. It's good to show the mistakes as well. So just apply it. It doesn't matter if it runs out over the sides because I've already got work I need to do afterwards to make all this 100%. So now I just place on the lens and then cure that in place with the beast. Stop sliding. Oh, this is going from bad to worse. Right, to stop it sliding, I'm going to use my handheld torch just at one side to hold it in place. Then I can let go and cure it. Okay, so you can see I've got some drip marks again. I don't really care. I'm going to really bring this up to a perfect finish. So I'm going to take this outside. You can see there's a lip where the lens meets the back. I'm going to take this outside, use my Dremel and just take down those edges, and then I can move on to a sandpaper and just really bring that down flush. But again, make sure you're wearing a mask if you're doing any kind of sanding or stuff like that. So I've taken off most of it. That's as much as I really want to do. Now, if you were more clever than me, what you would have done is you would have, with the lens, only filled up part way, not all the way, which would make the diameter of it slightly smaller. So it would have met the actual cloud part that we made. It would have met a lot better without all of that hard work. So yeah, if you're making the lens, just don't fill it all the way up so it fits. Now, you don't even, my mask's riding up my face, hold on. You don't even have to do that part. If you wanted to, you could just take the base out, make sure it's really level, and then just dome it. It's entirely up to you how you want to do it, but I prefer doing it this way. So I've just sanded that down to finish it off. P600, I think. A worn down P600 anyway. But now comes my favourite part. We are going to dip it. So I'm going to use a stick again, and all I'm going to do is just bond that to the back with my flashlight. Can then let go. And what you can actually do is build up an area on the back that we can then attach an eyelet to once we snap off the stick after dipping it. But if you were, again, more clever than me, you would have placed a cloud in the right place so that when it comes to drilling and putting an attachment like an eyelet on, it wouldn't have been visible. But again, I've only done this. This is only the second time now, so I'm kind of learning as I go. But you could also wire wrap it if you wanted to. So there we have the forbidden resin lollipop. But just make sure that you've got it the right way up when you're attaching this. You don't want to go doing it on the bottom and then realise it's in the wrong place. So out comes my little black pot of clear UV resin. Let's see, there's quite a bit of sunken glitter in there from different projects, but just leave it and it settles anyway. Before we do this, just to make sure there's nothing stuck to the surface, just a bit of tape. seen me do this quite a bit on my channel. I love doing this. It's so satisfying. Get off! It's stuck to my finger. Get off! Breathe. So, this is my favourite part of resin art. When you dip the cloudiness in and reveal an incredible piece. So I'm just going to make sure the front and the back is fully covered with the UV resin. And I'm just going to rotate that on the side of the pot just to make sure everything's covered and we're all good. And pop any bubbles that are on the surface with a long nose lighter. But we want to allow this a good couple of minutes to just drip off any of the excess, so that as we're turning it under our lamp, it's not going to start rippling up and distorting. So just hold it for a good minute or so just to drip off any of that excess resin. So it's been there for about a minute. I think the last drop is about to come off. Now what I can do is just keep rotating that. I'm going to turn my lamp on, which is next to me, and then I'm going to hold it without bashing anything and just rotate it under my UV light until it's cured. Okay, now that's cured, do not go touching this with the gloves that you've already had on. See all this sticky resin? That's where I took off the lid from the pot. If I go touching that, I've then got to resand the whole piece and re-dip it. It's best to just put this to one side, face up, and change your gloves. And I would also recommend, I mean, I don't suffer with it with my lamp and this resin, but doing a water cure, just so that if you touch it, it's not going to leave, because where we've been turning it above the UV pot, oxygen inhibition can happen. So I explained this in a previous video using penguins of all things. Oxygen can attach itself to the surface of the resin, and when it cures, it prevents the full outside of the resin from curing. So if you haven't got that lamp, I'd highly recommend that you do a minute water cure just underneath your lamp, just for a minute in water. I'm quite lucky as well, is where I attach the stick, it is behind a cloud, and just to remove that, we twist the stick until it snaps. Then we can drill through the wood that's already there. It's not actually going to show, so I could just use that wood as like a rule plug and I could just screw my eyelet straight into that. But I tell you what, the eyelets that I've got are the worst eyelets on the planet. The times I've screwed them in and they snap as I'm tightening it, they're so weak. So pre-drilling is probably going to be a safer option. So there you can see I managed to drill, and I found a different eyelet and did a strength test first. So I screwed in the eyelet, and then I was able to just bend it up slightly so it's nice and it's going to sit nicely on the neck. Now I have these aren't brilliant, they're not very strong, but you could always solder them together so it's not going to come off. That's all I've got at the moment. As always, give the video a thumbs up, drop me a comment if you haven't subbed. Again, it's free, hit that button for me. So this is the first one I did. I'm going to show you in some different light as well, but you can see just how busy that is, and I kind of went a bit overboard with the wispy but in different light, in natural light, these are absolutely stunning. I'll show you in a moment. So that was the first one I did. I didn't really sand that down because it was just a trial run. But in different light, honestly, it looks incredible. So this is the one that we have just created. When you see this in different light, your jaw will drop. So here is the first one. I'll try and get it in different lights. How incredible is that? Absolutely stunning. The sun's gone out now, or gone in, so I can't really show you the full potential. And that is the one that we have just made. I think I prefer the first one with the blue further down, if I'm completely honest. I think I've gone a little bit too high, maybe, with the orange, but it's still absolutely incredible. Look at that. But there we go. I'm loving these. Do them on different sizes, try them in different ways, but I really love the way the pigment paste actually looks like real clouds. We've got like a stormy cloud effect, like the clouds are bubbling up, much more different than soap, or what was the other one? Soap. I've lost it now. But there you go. Hope you enjoyed that one. I will see you for the next one. See, this one looks better in this light, but it's just that subtle glow down there, isn't it, that really makes it look realistic. Right, see you for the next one. Bye for now.